What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. Trevor, Sikkema, and Dalton Wasserman here with you guys to recap what we saw in the final week of the regular season here in the NFL. We're not going to go through every single game, but we are going to go through the games which actually meant something towards playoff spots, towards playoff seeding, and then we'll open up the playoff picture entirely. We'll do a little mini preview here, Dalton, for these games now that we have the official playoff picture in front of us. But we will leave most of the heavy lifting to the Wednesday preview show. But how you doing, my friend? We made it to the postseason. The regular season is all finished up. How you doing?
We've certainly made it. An exciting weekend and certainly a fitting finale last night, wasn't it, right? All of the suspense that comes with division titles.
Like a top five game of the season all of a sudden
honestly,
at the very end.
Just, two future Hall of Famers going at it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's all you can ask for on the last Sunday night of the regular season. And I think we've got as wide open a playoff field as you could possibly ask for. As we're trying to, I think anybody trying to predict who's winning the Super Bowl right now, good luck to you, because there's a lot of difficult tasks in front of some of, who we might think are the favorites, and a lot of these teams are so even.
I already got a bet in for the matchup for the Super Bowl.
Oh.
I'll save it for when we get to the playoff part of this show here.
You're feeling that good about two teams now.
I already got a bet in. Yeah, I already got a bet in. And I do feel pretty good about it.
As you should at this point. You
already
made the bet now.
I put hard-earned currency on the line, so I better feel good.
If you made a bet and immediately feel terrible about it, I don't know what you're doing.
And I'll tell you
gambling.
Exactly why I feel good about it. Using PFF data, among other things, which you guys can use yourself if you have a PFF Plus subscription. Holiday 30, we're still running it. We're still running the Holiday 30 sale. It's still the holidays. It's extended. Dalton hasn't taken down the Christmas tree yet. And so until Dalton takes down the Christmas tree, the holiday sale will continue. I don't know if I'm legally allowed to say that, but Holiday 30 gets you the 30% off promo code that we have running right now over at PFF.com. You can see all the data, the grades, everything that we're going to talk about here on this show, and so much more. You get the free agency tool in a couple of months, which we'll be using a lot. You'll get the fully unlocked mock draft simulator, all of that great stuff. So if you don't have one, make sure you get one now. Use the promo code Holiday30 to get yourself 30% off when you do. Dalton, let's start with Ravens-Steelers. I think we have to, right? Because this is a game between two teams that I think as a whole underwhelmed, not just versus our expectations of what they maybe could have been, but just their own, right? I mean, I think that there have been really frustrating points through both of these teams. There have been ups and downs. There have been valleys and lulls that lasted longer than both of these teams wanted. But in the end, these teams faced off on Sunday Night Football, and it was very simple. You win the division. This is one of the most storied rivalries that we have in the National Football League, and it was an absolute barn burner into the fourth quarter. Pittsburgh wins, so congratulations to the Pittsburgh Steelers now getting to host a playoff game next week, and their top five graded players as the winners of this game. TJ Watt at the very top of the list with an 81.0 overall grade. Defensive tackle Cam Hayward with an 80.3. Offensive tackle Dylan Cook with a 79.1. Offensive guard Mason McCormick a 78.6. And then running back Jalen Warren with a 78.4. Aaron Rodgers, 69.5 for the whole game, but a lot better in that fourth quarter when he, like you said right before we hit record, it felt like turned back the clock to 2020 the way that he was throwing the football. On Baltimore's side of things, their top five graded players, cornerback Nate Wiggins at the top of the list with an 83.6. Wide receiver Zay Flowers, who was also one of the heroes of the fourth quarter, 81.7. Offensive tackle Roger Rosengarten with a 75.0. Running back Derrick Henry a 74.2. Edge rusher Draymond Jones a 71.9. And then Lamar Jackson this game, an elite score, a 91.6. Dalton, as we often do, give the people the stat that told the story here on this Steelers win.
Well, for the first three quarters, we got the game we pretty much thought we were getting exactly right. It was ugly. It was defensive. There was no DK Metcalf. It was Derrick Henry trying to carry the Ravens to a win. It was 13-10, right? An ugly defensive battle. And then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, these two quarterbacks decided to play like MVPs again. How about the Steelers and Ravens combining for 8 explosive passes in the fourth quarter of this game? Only 3 combined in the first 3 quarters. They just decided decided, you know what, to hell with the game plan, to hell with what everybody thinks is going to go on in this game. This is going to come down to the sheer willpower of Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers, and we ended up getting a duel for the ages, at least for the fourth quarter of this game. And the passing grades show that even for the two quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers, before the fourth quarter, had a 60 passing grade, basically very, very neutral, 76.6 in that fourth quarter. The big touchdown to Calvin Austin, several great throws to Pat Freiermuth, especially down the field as well. And then Lamar Jackson, just incredible. First three quarters, very quiet, as the Ravens' passing game has been for most of this year, 64.3 passing grade. Fourth quarter, how about a 94.6 passing grade in that last quarter? 2 touchdowns to Zay Flowers. We just got a great quarterback duel that decided to just bubble until the fourth quarter, and then these two teams just decided, you know what, the urgency of this moment, we have to put this game in our quarterback's hands. It ends up coming down to a missed field goal by Tyler Loop, but the two quarterbacks in the fourth quarter put on an absolute show.
You know, Aaron Rodgers, I know that we were talking before about it's like they turned back the clock. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers isn't quite the quarterback that he was when he was winning those back-to-back MVPs. What was it, in 2021, 2022. He's not still that type of quarterback, but it is kind of funny after years of watching the league try to hold on to some of these veterans that you realize they just don't have a lot left in the tank, right? Like Joe Flacco was one of them, Matt Ryan when he was with the Colts, Phillip Rivers, the first stint with the Colts and the second stint with the Colts. You sort of had this style of play from the position. Kirk Cousins is another one who we've seen recently, where these guys are playing so much with anticipation and wisdom between the ears, if you will. They don't have the arm or just the athletic ability that maybe they once did, but they've seen it all. As Tom Brady has said before, I have all the answers to the test. It's why I never snapped the football before I knew exactly what the defense was going to do. That's the way that Aaron Rodgers is playing. And I even think that it's fourth quarters like the one that we saw last night where I go, why are they holding him back? Like, I understand that they don't necessarily have the wide receiver. Not having DK Metcalf's obviously a big deal as well, but when Aaron Rodgers goes out and plays that fourth quarter the way he does, I kind of say to myself, where was this the other 17 weeks? Because we saw it, but just very seldom. And maybe that is part of Aaron Rodgers collaborating with Arthur Smith, their offensive coordinator, to say, hey, this is kind of how I'm comfortable and want to run the offense. So maybe he has a hand in it as well. But I remember going back all the way to week 1, where the Steelers played the Jets. And that was a game where the Steelers obviously won that game. But we looked at it, and I think that was one of the games where we got some pushback from Steelers fans, if I remember correctly, who were upset or just curious, I should say, about Aaron Rodgers' passing grade. And it wasn't super high, despite the fact that his box score numbers were really good, and they came back and won that game. And I remember us having this conversation about it, that Rodgers, he didn't have to complete a lot of difficult passes. But anytime you messed up, even the slightest, he saw it, and he was there. The ball was out of his hands. It was going exactly where it needed to. There were a couple of, especially in the second half of that game, some busted coverage by the Jets. And the second that they had a coverage bust, Aaron Rodgers threw the ball right to that player. And the reason why I bring that up is because last night, right, the fourth quarter, the throw to Calvin Austin, well, Chidobe Awuzie falls on that route, on that play. But I still can give Aaron Rodgers a little bit of credit because he looked that way exactly when he needed to. And that ball came out exactly when it needed to hit Calvin Austin to score that touchdown. And it just goes into, just because he's not throwing for all the big-time throws that he used to, doesn't mean that you can't still appreciate some of what Aaron Rodgers is doing. The reason why I brought up a lot of those veterans of Matt Ryan and Kirk Cousins and Joe Flacco is because they are this version of this veteran quarterback. Outside of Tom Brady, because I don't think Tom Brady is a realistic comparison with what he did with the Buccaneers in his twilight years, Aaron Rodgers is essentially like the best version of what those veteran, that like this phase of a veteran quarterback is. Aaron Rodgers is the best version of that right now. And to be honest, it is fun to watch when it goes well.
No, certainly. It's pinpoint. It's about manufacturing offense. And it's the reason that they brought him in is because last year the offense with Russell Wilson, and Wilson did produce at a fine level, but it was too hit or miss. It was home run or strikeout. It was just the deep balls to George Pickens. They wanted a different style of quarterback, even if the box score numbers didn't look all that different from Wilson or maybe even a little bit less. They needed a guy who knew how to get first downs. I think there's really three numbers that speak to what you're saying. Rodgers, lowest average depth of target of any starter in football this year. The third lowest average time to throw in football this year, and the eighth lowest turnover-worthy play rate. They need somebody to manage the game at an elite level, and with Rodgers' knowledge of defenses and his vision, like you mentioned, his field vision is among the greatest quarterbacks of all time. That's really what got them through this. And then when he's in a clean pocket, there is still just enough arm to go out there and make plays like he did last night. So credit to him a lot. And you know what? You mentioned it. I think Aaron Rodgers, the entire point of what you're saying, too, about why wasn't this there all year, because honestly, he's not at a stage in his career where he can do that for 17 games and carry you like that for 17 games. Now, he got him to 10-7. He got him to a division title and into the postseason, but this is what you want from Rodgers. You want him to manage the game well, and you want him to come through in big moments. He did that really in both of these games against Baltimore, and that was the difference in their season.
I mean, now seeing what he did in the fourth quarter, maybe you're right. Maybe it was a little bit of like, hey, because, again, Brady has talked about this recently. He jokingly was on a podcast, and he's like, I could go out and play right now. He's like, but I couldn't do a full season.
Phillip Rivers, same thing. He's not going to play all 17 games.
He's like, I couldn't do it for a full season. He's like, I couldn't do it for a full off season, a full season, which I think he's lying. But he was basically saying, like, I don't want to do it for a full season. It might have just been a little bit of self-preservation for the Steelers offense and for Rodgers to get to that point. But now that they're in the dance, seeing what we saw in the fourth quarter, you go, okay, he's got some left in the tank. He's feeling about as fresh as you can feel for a 40-year-old quarterback who's now making it into the postseason. So that brings up sort of what Mahal was talking about in the chat, where he's saying that Steelers have a shot at upsetting the Texans because that's the matchup that they have in the playoffs. The reason why I'm very wary on that is you look at the Steelers' second half coverage specifically. They were all those coverage busts, 175 passing yards and a 29.4 coverage grade in the fourth quarter alone. Right now, a lot of those are coverage busts, so you're hoping that those things don't repeat. But the Steelers' defense has been really up and down in their secondary and at the second level throughout the season. And when you look at now that Steelers' offense going up against the best defense in the NFL in Houston, I'm not going to be taking the Steelers to upset the Houston Texans. I just don't love that matchup for them there. I think that there's just too much team speed for the Texans for them to be able to have to deal with it. But that's a little bit of my thoughts before we get to that.
If they were going to do it, and again, you've got a world of difference between the two pass rushers between Baltimore and Houston, they would need their offensive line to play the way that it did in this game. And you've got a backup at left tackle in Dylan Cook. You've got Isaac Seumalo, who had a great game. Zach Frazier and Mason McCormick are two keepers on the inside. Troy Fautano's been good lately at right tackle. You look at this offensive line, 77.8 PFF grade, 85 pass blocking grade. Both of those, they're third best of the season out of the 17 games. The offensive line only charged with 6 pressures and 1 sack all night. The big thing with Aaron Rodgers now, with the lack of mobility that he has, is you just have to keep him clean. If they're able to somehow do that, and part of it is going to be him having to protect himself, if he's able to be protected somewhat against Houston, I do think they stand a chance. So I'll be honest with you, I haven't decided who I will pick to win. There's only one of the 6. There's only one of the 6 games that I know right now who I'm going to pick.
Well, don't spoil it, because we need people to continue to watch.
But I will tell you, this is not the one. I do think at home, and keep in mind also, we talk about Houston's pass rush. TJ Watt and the Steelers' pass rush against that Houston offensive line and CJ Stroud, that's also going to be a problem. I'll tell you what, I am expecting a low-scoring game.
Yes.
In that one. For sure, in Pittsburgh. I do think they have at least a chance to win. I have not decided who I'll pick yet in that one.
Okay, all right. Panthers and the Buccaneers are the next game that we're talking about here. Obviously, this had major playoff implications. But the implications were quite funny because Tampa wins this game by a score of 16-14, and yet the Panthers are the ones who win the division because of what happened in the Falcons game, which we'll get to here in a second. But the top 5 graded players that we had for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this game, poetic, folks. Poetic. Oh, no, are we doing the Panthers? Okay, well, I guess we're doing the Panthers first.
Division champions first. Why not?
All right, fine, yep. Whatever. Safety Nick Scott within 86.6. That wasn't the poetic part, although shout out to Nick Scott, I suppose. Don't know if he's into poetry. Wide receiver Tetron McMillan with a 79.8. Tight end Tommy Tremble with a 78.0. Offensive tackle Taylor Moton with a 75.1. And the defensive tackle Derek Brown with a 69.3. Bryce Young in this game a 67.3 overall grade. And then on Tampa Bay's side of things, this was the poetic part The guy who is sitting there at number 1, who I'll talk about a little bit more here in a second, linebacker Levante David was their highest graded player in this game. What a lot of people assume to be the last game of his, in my opinion, Hall of Fame NFL career. He earned an 84.0. Tristan Wirfs had an 83.7 right behind him. Tight end Cade Otton had a career day, an 83.3 overall grade. Edge rusher Yaya Diaby with a 72.8. Center Graham Barton a 71.1. And then Baker Mayfield in this game, a 62.8. Dalton, the weather was a big factor in this game. Rain made this a really uncomfortable and unideal game plan, I think, all the way around. But let's talk a little bit about, I think we need to focus more so on Carolina's side of things because they're the team that's playing this upcoming weekend. I felt like I was pretty disappointed in the game plan overall from them. I get it. It's raining. You know, you don't want to put the ball in harm's way. It's tougher to throw the football, all that kinds of stuff. But we went into this week thinking the Panthers have to have a much more aggressive game plan if they're going to win this game. And I thought that they were really conservative in how they played, and especially towards the beginning of the game. And I just don't know if they're willing to put enough on Bryce Young's plate for them to actually make some noise during the playoffs. And I think this game was another example of that.
The problem is I think they would have been more aggressive, but for the weather, right? Just pouring rain, especially through the first half.
I hope that that's the case.
It looked like with the rain in the first half especially that they were stuck. Because once Bryce got in a rhythm in the second half, Panthers offense really started rolling. They just came up a little bit short in the end. But I think when you look at now, this team in the first half of the season especially, we knew them as a really good running team, right? Their offensive line, their tight ends were doing a great job blocking. And then you had Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard running the ball so well and giving this team some balance, taking some of the weight off of Bryce's shoulders. Well, in this game, when you talk about playing in the pouring rain like that, there's three things I think that really matter when it comes to those conditions. One is ball security. Two is field position. And three, you have to be able to turn around and hand the football off. This is a game, and this was the problem is for the matchup, you're right. You don't want to run on first down all that often. But you had to in this game in these conditions, at least early on, right? But they fell in a hole because the Bucs did a better job running the football, and they just did it more often. The Bucs ran the ball 42 times in this game. Carolina just 14 for 19 yards. The Bucs had 140 yards. Now, was it the most efficient day for the Bucs ever? No, but it was enough to keep the chains moving, right, and keep yourself at least in decent spots in terrible weather. And then in the second half, obviously, like we mentioned, Bryce got better in the second half, but the Panthers only one first down all day running the football.
Right.
And that was on, I believe, a 4th and 1 for Chuba Hubbard in the second half of this game. The last thing, actually, when you talk about conditions, too, tackling. Okay, the Bucs only missed 5 tackles all day. Panthers missed 17. That's a big part of that rushing production, too, for the Bucs. So just when it came down to, in an ugly game early on especially, when the Panthers needed to be a more physical team than Tampa, because we were figuring this was a disadvantage, right, with Vita Vea and those guys on the inside. We talked about that in their first matchup where, hey, this is probably going to be on Bryce Young if they're going to win or lose this game. This was the case also, but to me, the weather conditions in the first 2.5 quarters didn't allow Dave Canales, didn't allow the Panthers to do that, and they just couldn't find any production in the run game to balance it, and they fell behind and dug themselves a hole they just couldn't come back out.
Yeah, 20 total yards between Hubbard and Dowdle in this game on 12 carries. I mean, that's just something that Carolina, I think, through the middle part of the season, they were very comfortable with how good they were as a rushing team. And down the stretch, and I think going into the postseason, they're going to need to lean more on Bryce Young. So it'll be interesting to see how aggressive they are for this upcoming matchup that they're hosting in the playoffs. And I hope it's going to be more aggressive because, quite frankly, we've said on the show, if they don't put more on Bryce Young's plate, they're just not having the ceiling that you need to, especially against good teams. And, you know, they're playing the Rams. They beat the Rams in Carolina. So they have done this before, but they did so by being really aggressive. It was almost a game plan where they thought, we got nothing to lose. We have to keep up with the team that's going to score 30 points at minimum, and they've got to have that same mindset going into that matchup there against the Rams. My most impressive, I'm just going to shout him out because I have to. Levante David in this game, a 76.5 run defense grade, an 81.5 coverage grade. He tied Derek Brooks for the most tackles in Buccaneers history. He also joined Ray Lewis and Brian Urlacher as the only players with 45-plus sacks and 35-plus takeaways since 1982. This is a Hall of Fame player. I think this is absolutely a Hall of Fame player. This is a storybook career. This is a player who was drafted by a team and only played for that team It was 9 years before Lavonte David ever even made the postseason. He played nearly a decade in Tampa before he played a single postseason game. He had that run to the Super Bowl and winning a Super Bowl when Tom Brady was there. He has long been one of the best, most efficient linebackers in the NFL, whether it comes to run defense, the pass rush ability that he has as a blitzer, but especially in coverage when what is asked of him as a will linebacker to cover so much, to cover different types of receivers, different types of running backs out of the backfield. He has also been such an Iron Man in playing over 200 games in his NFL career. He has played, I believe it's 215 is the final mark for him, but played in 215 games, started in 215 games. Since the moment that he was drafted, he has been a starter. And to live in the shadow of a guy like Derrick Brooks, who is one of the greatest to ever play the position, especially in Tampa Bay, I think that in and of itself just makes Lavonte's career just so much more special. It's so few times that you actually have a player who is sort of thought of to be the next great something, especially when you're following up a player of Derrick Brooks' caliber, and he actually lives up to it. And so shout out to Lavonte David in what we believe will be the last NFL game that he has played. If it is, it's a hell of a career, and I think it's one that should end in Canton.
Certainly one of the greatest Buccaneers of all time, 3-time All-Pro, only one Pro Bowl appearance, and I think that just speaks to just how underappreciated he was. He's always been this great player. It's not a hindsight, oh, look what he's done the last few years, and once Tom Brady got there, he's always been one of the best linebackers in the league for 14 years, and I think fitting that he goes out in this game with his highest graded game of the season. He was outstanding. He was a huge reason they won this game, and he's been a huge reason for the Bucs' success for 14 years. So if that is it, congratulations to Lavonte for sure. It's been an outstanding career.
Anything else on this game? I know we'll talk a little bit more about Carolina when we get into some of the other matchups, but anything here for Carolina's side of things?
Most impressive guy, just real quick, credit to Cade Otton as well.
Sure.
Seven catches, 94 yards, and a touchdown. It just feels funny that
in the rain game, you talk about lean on the run game, you also got to have a tight end that you're very comfortable going to.
Exactly. It's harder to take those shots downfield, right? Mike Evans didn't get a whole lot in this game, and Emeka Egbuka with just one catch for 8 yards. I mean, the wide receiving core that we've known Tampa Bay that just dominates every single week, seemingly. This time it was Cade Otton, the tight end, who really came through for him. It really felt like just every time they needed to move the chains, every time they really, really needed to play, Cade Otton was the guy that came through for their offense.
Yeah, he was fantastic. All right, before we get to our next game, our game plan of the week presented by Western Southern Financial Group, a game plan for your financial future. I think the game plan of the week was something that we predicted last week, and that was the Seattle Seahawks taking advantage of the San Francisco 49ers' lack of ability to stop the run. Over 150 rushing yards on the day between Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. When they faced off for the 1 seed on Saturday, and it was as simple as that. Hey, this team is not good at run defense. Let's lean into our run game even more so here for that, and it's a big reason why the Seattle Seahawks got the win and got the bye there. Just like every team win starts with a great game plan, your future should too. With life insurance built like a championship roster, Western and Southern helps protect you and your family so you can focus on winning, knowing that tomorrow is covered. Whether you're just starting out, building your dynasty, or looking to lock in long-term protection, their coverage options are designed to match your game plan. Visit westernsouthern.com/PFF to get your free life quote and start building your financial game plan today. Western and Southern, built to win, backed by over 130 years of helping people protect what matters most. Before we get to that Niners and Seahawks game, let's finish the NFC South by talking about the Saints and the Falcons. The Falcons win this game at 19-17. It's a 4-game win streak that the Falcons end the season on, but that was not enough to save Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot's job. New head coach and general manager, new everything. I think new order of operations in Atlanta, a full cleaning of house of what's going on there, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Atlanta's top 5 graded players as the winners of this game. Cornerback D. Alford with a 90.4. Defensive tackle David Onyemata with an 85.2. Safety Xavier Watts with a 77.6. Linebacker Devon Diablo with a 73.0. And offensive guard Chris Lindstrom with a 71.1. Kirk Cousins in this game, a 61.9 overall grade. On New Orleans side of things, edge rusher Carl Granderson with a 92.8. Edge rusher Chase Young with an 85.2. Got 10 sacks on the season in this game. You love to see it. Cornerback Quincy Riley with a 79.1. Edge rusher Cam Jordan with a 76.7. Linebacker Danny Stutzman with a 74.9. And then Tyler Shuck in this game, a 54.6. The reason why this game mattered and the reason why we're talking about it is because late on winning this game means that they're in a 3-way tie for the top of the division. Them, Tampa Bay, and Carolina all at 8-9, and because of that, the tiebreakers went in Carolina's favor to win the division.
What an odd headline. First place team fires head coach and GM. Think about that.
It's more odd when you think about them going 5-2 in their last 7 games.
Yeah, winning. You said winning the last 4.
Winning
correct?
the last 4, yeah.
I mean, look, a reset is a reset at this point, and I don't know if you've heard the rumors that it's possible Falcons legend Matt Ryan might be taking a high-ranking front office role with this team.
And I'm intrigued, I think is the word that I will use, right? Matt Ryan's an absolute legend, and so you know that he's going to do everything that he can for the franchise that he had so much success with, that drafted him, and then he just, he became as good as he did for.
Going the John Elway route on us.
That's the thing is do you feel good about that? I mean, Matt Ryan, 0 front office experience, 0. And now he's going to go into what we believe is a president of football operations role, which the GM and the head coach will report to. So I believe that the only person that Matt Ryan, if he's in this spot, will report to is Arthur Blank, the owner himself. And so very interesting. Obviously, you love the story of it. If Matt Ryan can be that presence in the front office that they want, you absolutely love it. But it's a risk with him having no front office experience and now becoming that guy that not only makes decisions, but that other people have to report to as well. So nothing's official there, but it feels like we're kind of trending in that direction. Anyways, for this game, Staff told the story. How did Atlanta do it?
I found it interesting, and it doesn't necessarily matter being, like you mentioned, the departure of the Falcons coaching staff now. It doesn't matter moving forward, but I found it interesting that the Falcons, 2 of their 3 lowest pass blitz rate games, okay, because Jeff Ulbrich, their defensive coordinator, had been so aggressive against everybody else this season. 2 of their 3 lowest pass blitz rate games came against the New Orleans Saints. The other one, the third one in that group, was the game last week against the Rams last Monday that really set up this whole chaotic scenario, right? So against the Saints, the Falcons really sat back. They sent a 4-man rush, and for the second time this year, Tyler Shuck was uncomfortable against this Falcons team. Of all of his starts, the 2 lowest passing grades have come against the Atlanta Falcons, and the big reason in this game, once again, a 38.8 passing grade when he was not blitzed in this game. Before the final drive that put them within reach to try an onside kick, that was a 31.4. 16 of 27, 159 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 2 turnover-worthy plays. He was just uncomfortable against the Falcons in both of these games when they sat back, when they didn't have the deep shots available to him. They sat back in zone coverage, and not having Chris Olave really hurt them in this game. You could feel that he was trying to find and feel for where the receivers were going to be, beating that zone coverage. He couldn't really rely on the wide receivers, especially consistently, without Olave in this game. And in 2 games against the Falcons' standard rush, a 39.3 passing grade. Against everybody else, when he was not blitzed, 82.7. So all of a sudden, I mean, honestly, if there's anybody relieved that it's not going to be Raheem Morris and Jeff Ulbrich on the Atlanta Falcons anymore, it's Tyler Shuck, because he was just fine against everybody else when they were only sending 4. And against this team with all their zone coverage, he really struggled. The interception to D. Alford in the 4th quarter was the biggest play of this game that eventually put it out of reach for New Orleans. But I just found that an interesting matchup that essentially Jeff Ulbrich beat Tyler Shuck the same exact way that he did the first time.
Yeah, and I think that is the stat that told the story here is the fact that Shuck had as poor of a passing day as he did when he was kept clean, when there were no blitzes, when even no pressure, like not just no blitzes, but no pressure involved. His passing grade was right around a 60, I think, when I looked. I'm not sure if the grades might have changed a little bit, but it's a situation where you look at this and you go, that's the goal.
51.8 passing grade in a clean pocket.
In a clean pocket. So it's like, that's the goal. You want the clean pocket. You've got to now be able to operate on the clean pocket. And so the fact that he did not play better with a clean pocket in ideal situations, that's how this game gets to be what it was. And the team winning ended up being the team that won.
And they made a lot of mistakes in this game, too. Juwan Johnson fumbles the first play of the game. The Shuck interception in the 4th quarter. They missed, I believe it was a 54-yard field goal. There was a block punt that led to Atlanta's only touchdown. Right. And you remember late in the game as well, he threw a touchdown pass down near the goal line, and there was an offensive pass interference. So there was just, the Saints really did make a lot of mistakes. They outgained the Falcons by over 100 yards. They did a lot right in this game, but in the biggest moments, they made all of the biggest mistakes as well.
Most impressive to me was Carl Granderson, just because I want to shout him out here in this game because he was the highest graded player, 92.8 overall grade, 89.9 run defense grade, 92.2 coverage grade, had that interception on the screen pass, which was
what a play that was.
Insanely high IQ play. But then he also 77.0 pass rush grade, had a sack and a half in this game. Carl Granderson was all over the place, and I really do feel as though he is one of the most underrated players in the NFL. Who talks about Carl Granderson? Nobody. And every single time that I watch Saints games, he's making some sort of a difference. Maybe not as nuclear as it was in this game where the guy's just absolutely going off, but there are plenty of plays like this that we have seen throughout this season. So shout out to Carl Granderson. Again, I think he's one of the most underappreciated players in the NFL, and he was great to watch in this game.
No, I agree. You feel good about that Saints edge trio of Granderson, Chase Young. You mentioned 10 sacks this year in a year where he missed a few games due to injury, plus Cam Jordan playing well in a part-time role. I think when you look at this Saints team, they need to add more to their offense, but along that defensive line, I think I'd be looking more on the interior to improve more so than the edge rushers. When you talk about next year's starters being Young and Granderson, you feel pretty good about that. My most impressive guy, give me D. Alford, man, 91.7 coverage grade, 7 catches allowed for just 53 yards, 5 coverage stops, and his interception in the fourth quarter, really high IQ play as well, down in the slot, playing the curl flat, and against a double slant concept that had been working for the Saints earlier in the game, baited Shuck to throw the outside slant, jumped it, and made the biggest play of the game. D. Alford in the slot, to me, was the most impressive guy.
So let's move on to the Seahawks and the Niners, the game that decided the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. Seahawks won a very low-scoring game by a score of 13-3, and it's, seeing the 49ers put up 3, and the week before they put up, 42?
Yes.
Against the Chicago Bears. It's just, I think that's more of a Seattle Seahawks stat than even a San Francisco 49ers stat, to be honest with you. Let's look at the top 5 graded players that we had for the Seahawks. Offensive guard Gray Zabel with a 93.4. Great to see the rookie all the way up there. Linebacker Drake Thomas with a 92.1. Edge rusher DeMarcus Lawrence an 82.1. Running back Kenneth Walker an 81.5. Linebacker Ernest Jones a 78.7. Then Sam Darnold in this game, a 60.2 overall grade. On San Francisco's side of things, cornerback Upton Stout with an 85.6 overall grade. Again, great to see a rookie there at the top of the list here on Week 18 for him. Offensive guard Dominic Pooney, an 84.0. Edge rusher Samson. This is Big Sammy O. Because I'm not going to butcher the last name. So I'm just, I'm going to talk to him like we're childhood friends. We've been friends forever. Sammy O getting the 73.1. Edge rusher Keon White with a 72.8. And then edge rusher Cleveland Farrell with a 68.3. Quarterback Brock Purdy in this game, a 76.2 overall grade. Dalton, your stat that told the story in the game that decided.
There was a very concerted effort from Seattle. They knew they had to come out and run the football for 2 reasons. 1, because the 49ers are very vulnerable in run defense, especially on their defensive line. 2, control time of possession. Keep that red-hot offense off the field, right? Because we know, and we saw it in flashes from Brock Purdy in this game, we know they can get hot at any time, and if Kyle Shanahan finds a groove, then you have a serious problem on your hands. But I thought Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet in the run game made a big statement. I thought Seattle's offensive line in this game made a big statement, especially early on. Again, when you talk about controlling the ball, even though they didn't score on their first drive, when you talk about taking off half of the first quarter, it puts the 49ers in a little bit of a lull offensively. You could feel that, right? So when you look at the rushing totals in this game, to me, very similar to what we had in Carolina and Tampa Bay earlier. Rushing yards, Seattle, 180. San Francisco, just 53. It's clear that they're going to need a healthy Trent Williams next week to beat Philadelphia. They need to get this run game going. Time of possession, Seattle had the ball for almost 38 minutes. First downs on the ground, Seattle 10, San Francisco just 1, and that was actually a Brock Purdy scramble on a pass play. 6 explosive runs for the Seahawks, and missed tackles forced. I'm talking as a runner and as a receiver now. Total missed tackles forced, Seattle 18. They forced 18 missed tackles. San Francisco just 3 the entire night. So that speaks to Seattle's defense being the more physical unit as well. That's what really I think the Seahawks have been looking for, is the missing piece in their offense. We saw it now in the win in Seattle over the Rams that put them in this position, and now we see it against San Francisco it's clinched them the number 1 seed. Earlier in the year, they were winning with Sam Darnold and the deep ball, and the great defense was obviously there. But we saw a moment where for a few weeks it was getting inconsistent. If you take away the deep ball, what else does this team have against two high safety looks, right? Against zone defense, what else does this team have? They have shown late in the season they can run the football. Their offensive line is improving. They're getting healthier. Charles Cross just got a big contract extension as well. That feels good, especially after getting the top seed in the NFC.
Yep.
If this team has balance, they're extremely, extremely dangerous, because the idea to me is that can Sam Darnold carry you for a stretch of games, or for a couple of drives? We saw it in the fourth quarter and overtime against the Rams. Yes. Do you want him to carry you through a whole playoff run? No. This might be the best defense in the NFL, and if they can control the pace of games, especially at home with the run game, enough, and ask Darnold to throw the ball maybe 30 times per a playoff game, they've got a shot, as good a shot as anybody, to go to the Super Bowl and to win it.
I think that on the defense side of things, we can't say enough about Nicky Manwari and how he is just playing with his hair on fire, man. Coverage grade, run defense grade, pass rush grade, all of them above 70 in this game. The combination of him and Devon Witherspoon moving in and out of the slot, depending on who is there, is just I think an underrated part of this luxury of having these players. A lot of people look at Nicky Manwari and they just go, oh my God, like he's just been unbelievable. Like they're just playing him in the slot. And it's great. And they obviously are. I'm not trying to, throw cold water on the praise for Manwari. He's been unbelievable. But I really think that it's the combination of having these two guys and being able to put them in advantageous situations. If it's a smaller wide receiver that's going to be in the slot, guess who's going to guard him? Witherspoon. He's going to shut that player down. If it's more of a tight end, a big receiver, if you're looking to get, more physicality, more sort of like pseudo linebacker roles from that apex slot, you can put Nicky Manwari there. And I think that he can neutralize that and play very, very well. So I think it's just this combination of being able to throw whatever pitch you believe the other team's not going to be able to hit. That's how they're operating with these slot defenders. And those two guys, it's such a luxury to be able to play with both of them. The stat that told the story, I mentioned it a little bit earlier in the show, though. It is the Niners' run defense. Since Week 9, second half of the season, worst run defense team in the NFL with a 32.5 overall run defense grade. This is on paper, we know it's week-to-week league, as they say, Dalton. On paper, this is a nightmare matchup for them against Philadelphia. Nightmare.
If Philadelphia actually chooses to run the ball.
And that's the thing.
If they choose to do it, the Niners have a serious problem.
But I think they're going to, because I think that they're going to be able to see what the 49ers are and how much they have struggled this year at doing just that, and what better way to get that running game going than to play the San Francisco 49ers. So not only are the 49ers not the one seed, not only does the NFC not run through San Francisco, not only do they not get another week off here, they have to travel to Philadelphia and the team that possesses, in my opinion, their greatest kryptonite. Now, whether or not they use it, we'll see. But I think this is this loss for the Niners could have been just a catastrophic loss for them this season. Because if they win this game against Seattle, you get another week of rest. You're getting even more healthy. You're hosting whatever team gets to you in the divisional round. You're then hosting the NFC Championship game if you get there. And then guess what? The Super Bowl's at home because it's in Levi Stadium. Everything was set up so perfectly, but the fact that they lost this game, now you're going to Philadelphia, I think that's a tall task for a Niners team that's really going to have their best offensive day just to keep up with a team that is going to be very willing, in my opinion, to not only run the football but just control the clock, keep their offense on the side of the field. I think this is the worst possible scenario for the Niners.
A point on each side for me here. First, San Francisco. Their offense, except for on this day against Seattle, and they have struggled to score against Seattle in both games they've played them, right? Just 17 points.
I think everybody does.
Right, but them especially. And look, you're talking about a second playoff game. If Chicago beats Green Bay and San Fran were to beat Philly, then they got to go to Seattle again.
Right.
They have to figure this out somehow, right? But their offense is good enough to go to and win a Super Bowl. I think at the end of the day, their defensive line is what's going to keep them from it. And we're going to talk more in depth about it later. But their defensive line, to me, is the biggest problem. On Seattle's side, you were mentioning Manwari and Witherspoon, the advantages that gives you. Nicky Manwari changes the math of their defense, right? And not only has he played great football individually, but he changes the math. Seattle runs their base defense, right, less than 6% of the time. Least in the NFL.
Right.
because Nicky Manwari essentially he's their weak side linebacker.
Right.
That's how this works. Witherspoon can play inside or outside. And when you talk about Witherspoon playing in the slot or Manwari playing in the slot on the same snap, basically then Manwari just becomes your second linebacker, and you're just in a smaller version of nickel. So, I mean, when you talk about he was the perfect fit in this defense, he absolutely was. He went to the best team and the best defensive play caller in Mike McDonald he possibly could have, and he's making a huge impact. He's made the entire team better. I'm going to talk about another rookie as my most impressive guy. How about the starting left guard, Gray Zabel? You talk about Seattle dominating on the ground. It was because of their offensive line, and Zabel was the biggest reason for it. How about this? A 91.6 run blocking grade. 11 positive run blocks and did not allow any pressure as a pass protector. Trevor, his overall grade there, right? 93.4. That's the third highest graded game by any guard this season.
Nice.
The entire year. He's played a lot better the last 4 or 5 weeks down the stretch of the season. He even talked about, I felt like I kind of hit the rookie wall and trying to play a little, trying to figure things out at the end of the season. This offensive line, actually, to me, Zabel and this crew is the X factor in Seattle possibly going to a Super Bowl. It's really about them, both in the pass and run games. If they can play, this was a level that you don't play at every single week, but if they can play at something close to this level, then yeah, they could be the best team in football.
And I don't want to say short. Anything else on this one before we move on? Because we got 2 more games that we got to hit before we get into some playoff scenarios.
We're gonna have a lot more fun with these two teams in the coming weeks.
All right. Well, before we get to the last 2 games, really quickly, before we get to the playoff scenarios, this PFF betting segment brought to you by our friends over at DraftKings. We talked a little bit about the matchup with the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. We don't have the player prop bets yet, but I'd keep an eye on those, Dalton. That's the game that I'm going to look at the most because
Saquon.
They have just struggled. And I think the lines will be interesting with this game because of what you mentioned. The Eagles have not leaned into the run game as much as we thought they would have this year. So does the carry or the yards averages for Saquon throughout the season, does that maybe lower the lines of what will be, okay, this is the over-under for Saquon on the game? And that's what I'm going to be looking at pretty closely. That's the matchup that I'm looking forward to because the Niners just have really struggled in that area to defend the run, and the Eagles have the ability to really blow that wide open. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, makes every playoff moment feel bigger. DraftKings has your back with early exit protection. If the player in your eligible NFL prop bet goes down at any point in the first half, you still get paid in cash. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the promo code PFF. That's code PFF to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire within 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms for responsible gambling resources, see dkng.co/audio. And this is a limited time offer. All right, really quick, we had 2 games that had seeding implications here for the playoffs, not win or you're out type of implications, but ones that we want to touch on nonetheless. The Denver Broncos defeated the Los Angeles Chargers 19-3. No Justin Herbert in this game. Is business as usual for Denver's defense, certainly holding the Chargers just 3 points in this one. On Denver's side of things, their top 5 graded players, edge rusher Nick Bonito with a 91.7, linebacker Justin Strnad with a 90.7. Defensive tackle, Zach Allen with an 86.9, cornerback Jaquan McMillan with an 85.6, and then cornerback Riley Moss with a 79.4. Bo Nix in this game, a 56.5 overall grade. Didn't need a big Bo Nix day to win this one. On LA side of things, offensive guard Trevor Penning with an 81.6, edge rusher Odafe Owe with an 80.5, cornerback Tariq Still with a 72.2, safety Tony Jefferson a 70.6, and linebacker Marlo Wax with a 69.1. Trey Lance in this one, 36.4 overall grade. Stats that told the story, Dalton.
I mean, look, the Broncos secondary, their defense in general had obviously an advantageous matchup against Trey Lance, against a lot of the backup receivers for the Chargers. And even on defense, the Chargers weren't playing everybody out there. But they put together a pretty good defensive effort. At the end of the day, the Broncos coverage, too good and too good for Trey Lance to handle. That starting unit, 87.3 coverage grade. Lance, a 29.7 passing grade with just 3 yards per attempt. So like you mentioned, the Broncos defense dominated this game as they should. It's the reason they won the ball game. Real quick, third straight game, we'll have a nickel corner as the most impressive player for one of us. Jaquan McMillan, the pick six that ended up being Denver's only touchdown of the day, allowed 5 catches for just 20 yards, made 3 stops as well. And even, for as much as there were moments in this game where the Chargers, they threw some punches and they were moving the ball reasonably well, they just couldn't finish with points. And Denver's combination of pass rush and talent in the secondary makes them so dangerous, especially in that home state.
Yeah, my most impressive was Nick Bonito. I mean, every single week he just looks unblockable. And this is somebody who kind of came into the league as a designated pass rusher type out of Oklahoma, and he's really blossomed into somebody that just remains a high impact player. I think that when Nick Bonito came into the league, I think teams are still hesitant of like, okay, yeah, situational type of player. And now you go, okay, well, what if we make the situation just always? And you just put him out on the field and let him get in the backfield, and you just see how much value he's able to bring your defense. 90.8 pass rush grade, 19.2% pass to win percentage in this game. Some areas of concern, though, really quick with Denver, who gets the number 1 overall seed. So we're not going to see them this upcoming weekend. We'll see them the following weekend. The red zone in this game, 0 for 3 in the red zone. Now, I'm not going to be too, sound the alarms about it, because they're 13th in the NFL in overall red zone conversion percentage on the season. And when you look at their last couple of matchups, it's like, okay, well, they haven't been terrible in the red zone. It's just not great to put up a stinker like this right before you get into the playoffs. So that's something that they've really got to get right here. They got to make sure they're able to convert in the red zone, that they're able to turn those field goal opportunities into touchdowns. That's how you make a AFC championship run. That's how you make a Super Bowl run. They've absolutely got to do that. And then in this game, RJ Harvey in the rushing game, 15 carries for just 28 yards for RJ Harvey. Now, I know they had some success outside of him with who is it?
Jaleel McLaughlin.
Yes, Jaleel McLaughlin, who had a good game, and then Bo Nix as well, using his legs. But I get worried about this run game becoming too stagnant in the playoffs against good playoff teams, and then you're putting a little bit more on Bo Nix's plate, maybe when you don't necessarily want to, or the situation doesn't call for it. So there will be plenty of time to preview who the Broncos are, what they could bring to the table when we know their matchup once we get into the divisional round. But they've got to be better in the red zone, and they've got to be better at rushing the football. If they don't do that, I don't think this is a legitimate Super Bowl team. But again, we'll break that down even deeper when we get into the division.
3 real quick things for me on that end. One, and we've seen this all year, it feels like they play up and down to whoever they're playing.
Right.
Offensively, don't love that. 2, they've scored 20, 20, and 19 in their last 3 games. They're cooling off a little bit. And 3, just something to note with the Chargers as the 7 seed. And if they were to go to New England and win, the Broncos' 2 lowest graded games on offense are both against the LA Chargers.
Yeah.
That's just something interesting to note. And there's going to be no easy games in the AFC, but I find this very, very that's a very interesting dynamic to me with the way we've seen this offense struggle against this Charger defense if they have to play a third time, which is extremely possible if the Chargers can. It's going to happen if the Chargers go out to New England and win.
Anything else on this one?
Nope.
Okay, so Jacksonville is the last game they're talking about here, because Jacksonville had an opportunity but to potentially get the 1 seed if they won and they got some help. They won this game by a lot. 41-7 was the final score, and I think we're just kind of wanting to talk about this one because even though the Jacksonville Jaguars are the number 3 seed, boy, you feel pretty good about this team going into the postseason. They're top 5 graded players here in this game against Tennessee. Tight end Brenton Strange at the top of the list with an 87.5. Cornerback Jerrion Jones with an 87.3. Safety Antonio Johnson an 86.3. Wide receiver Parker Washington an 85.0. Edge rusher Josh Hines Allen an 84.5. Quarterback Trevor Lawrence had an 82.6. And then on Tennessee's side of things, running back Tajay Spears with a 77.3. Defensive tackle Devondre Sweat a 73.9. Edge rusher James Lynch with a 71.2. Cornerback Micah Robinson with a 70.5. And then edge rusher Jahad Ward with a 65.4. Brandon Allen in this game, who we listed the quarterback and not Cam Ward because Cam Ward went out in this game pretty early. Allen had a 36.4 overall passing grade in this one. Dalton South told the story.
It's the quarterback difference, right? And Cam Ward only played 5 snaps on the Titans' opening drive and had the rushing touchdown that put him ahead 7-0, but got hurt his right shoulder on that touchdown. And it all just kind of fell apart from there. EPA per pass, Jaguars, and we know Trevor Lawrence has been red hot. In all likelihood, with Trevor Lawrence playing like this, would the Titans have won this game even if Cam Ward was in there? Probably not.
Probably.
But that was the one reason you felt like, okay, you've got some ray of hope here. Jaguars EPA per pass, positive .426, ridiculously good. Titans EPA per pass, minus 0.7. Ridiculously bad, and it's just kind of where the Titans are right now, where kind of represents their team. Cam Ward is their one hope. Otherwise, a lot of things have gone very poorly this year. I think they're picking 4th overall in the draft. I believe they're picking 4th, so we'll see what they do with that pick. But, yeah, it really felt like Cam Ward not coming back out on the field and Brandon Allen going in there, it kind of just calmed everything down for the Jags after a couple of early punches, and they just went, okay, let's take care of business here. Lawrence was outstanding. Again, 80.8 passing grade, 255 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 big-time throws. His last 5 games, he's got a 94 PFF grade. I mean, we've been saying it for a couple weeks now.
They're hot, baby.
They're raging hot. They've got a bunch of weapons. They've got balance. The run game wasn't great in this one, but Tennessee's run defense is also very good. Their run game is going to be a very big key for them against Buffalo at home next week. They've got balance. Their defense is rolling. Their quarterback's raging hot, and I really think that's the big difference here. If Trevor Lawrence continues to play like he's played the last 5 or 6 weeks, they're as much a Super Bowl contender as anybody in the AFC.
I would agree with you. Seth told the story for me in this one. Jags were 3 for 3 in the red zone. I love to see that. They're top 10 all year, including every game in the regular season when it comes to red zone touchdown percentage, and they're top 10 overall in the last 3 games. So not only have they sustained being a top 10 red zone team, but they're getting even hotter. I think they're right below 70% heading into the postseason at how they're executing when they get in the red zone. I also loved Parker Washington in this game, as I have the last couple of weeks. Over 87 receiving yards in each of the last 3 games, had an 83.0 receiving grade this season, which just showcases how well he's been able to play all season long as an impact player for them. The Cam Ward injury update, he had a sprained AC joint in his shoulder, so doesn't need surgery, but obviously a bummer that you're ending the year on an injury, so you're just hoping that he is 100% ready to go when next season rolls around. Look, anything else on this one before we move on?
Quick fun fact with my most impressive guy. Did you know we end the regular season and Jaguars safety Antonio Johnson is the highest graded safety in football?
I could have guessed that. You know why?
Because I wrote it down?
No, because over the last month and a half, the Jacksonville Jaguars, if you just look at their linebackers, cornerbacks, and safeties, number 1 in the NFL coverage grade-wise by a mile. And this by a lot. So it is not just, I want people to understand this. This is not just Trevor Lawrence is playing well. This is the offensive line is playing well. This is this entire receiving core with Brenton Strange and Parker Washington and Jacoby Myers and Brian Thomas Jr. All of them are playing well. The defensive line is playing very solid, and the coverage unit behind them is playing incredibly well, better than any team in the NFL over the last month and a half. This is a total 3-phase team, especially when you include Cam Little, who might be the most dangerous special teams weapon in the NFL with how much power he has in his leg. This is a 3-dimensional, 3-phase team that you talked about them being as good of a Super Bowl contender as any. That's how you get to this point. It's not just one guy. It's not even just the head coach. Whole team.
Johnson, for this defense, does all of the same things that we just talked about for Nicky Manwari in Seattle. As Jacksonville has gotten deeper into the year and he's joined the starting lineup, they are also playing less and less base defense than ever, down around 20% the second half of the season. Johnson is that guy making it happen as the pseudo third linebacker down in the box. I think he's got 5 interceptions this season. Him, and I've told you this all year, him and Andrew Wingard are 2 huge keys to their defense with just all the versatility they bring. So even though they've had some cornerback injuries, obviously Travis Hunter, Jordan Lewis, both done for the year, they've been able to make up for it with other guys out there. Jerrion Jones, Greg Newsome's played solid football for them. And then this unit of safeties and the way those 3 guys, Johnson, Wingard, and Eric Murray, work together, it's really making this defense go right now. That makes them extremely dangerous, especially in the passing game.
All right, a quick look and preview of all the matchups that we're going to have in the playoffs for Wild Card Weekend, coming up on the other side of the PFF Player Prop Tool video, which you guys can see the Player Prop Tool over at PFF.com, but here's a little bit of a preview of what you get with it. Check it out, and we'll preview these games right after this.
Everyone's got takes. Numbers have truth. And the truth is, most people are betting with emotion. Sportsbooks feed on it. TikTok gurus sell it. The hype machine runs on it. That's how you lose. PFF is different. You're betting with winning data. The same data trusted by all 32 NFL teams and the sharpest minds in the game. PFF betting tools take every prop, every matchup, every angle, and run them through our custom models. Built on the best football data in the world. What comes back is your edge. Simple, sharp, and built to win. Want to go deeper? PFF puts a pro-level analytics department in your hands, giving you the same insights teams use to find every advantage. Build your game plan with matchup analysis. Project every snap, every matchup, and every edge before kickoff, because the smartest plays start long before Sunday. Hit rates show how a player performs against their prop and against defenses built the same way. It's the data that gives you real confidence in every pick. Next, Key Insights translates PFF data into the story behind every matchup, giving you the why that powers your bets. From coverage schemes to defensive looks, it's the context that turns raw numbers into winning decisions. When you're ready to take action, filter through every prop on the market and focus on the opportunities that matter, by game, matchup, or value. Then, shop for the best available line in your area and tap your book of choice to place the bet instantly. Everyone's got takes, but now you've got truth. Bet with data, win with PFF.
All right, here we go. Let's look at these playoff matchups as they have been solidified. We're not going to do the full preview here. We'll save the full preview for the Wednesday show. But let's take a look at the NFC or the AFC. Excuse me. Let's look at the AFC first. We've got the Denver Broncos getting the bye here, and then the three games that we have on Wild Card Weekend. We got the Chargers traveling to the Patriots. We've got the Bills traveling to Jacksonville to take on the Jags. And then we've got the Texans traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. Either quick words on all of them. Maybe you just want to focus on one. Dalton, give me a shout out here. Your thoughts on the AFC playoff picture.
Yeah, as wide open a playoff picture as I've ever seen. You look at this playoff picture with the AFC. No Mahomes, no Joe Burrow, no Lamar Jackson.
I know.
And Josh Allen's a 6th seed. So
yeah,
you're talking about the weirdest AFC playoffs I think you possibly could. And I think any of those 6 teams in the first round, any of them could win any of those games. I think, to me, I honestly think Bills-Jaguars, I think it's the best game of the entire weekend. I think it's going to be just fantastic. You've got Josh Allen. Obviously, you would argue the best quarterback remaining, unless Matthew Stafford's having the MVP type year, Drake Mason. But Josh Allen's the scariest single player remaining in this postseason. And the way Trevor Lawrence is playing, he's trying to play his way into that conversation as well. And we just talked about how well-rounded the Jaguars are. If the Bills are going to get that win in Jacksonville, it's going to take everything they have. And we know they're not always quite as good on the road. I really think Bills-Jags is the best game of this entire wild card weekend.
I'm very excited for this side of the bracket, specifically for Jacksonville, because they're facing such an intriguing opponent with Buffalo, who has been there, who is battle-tested, who is hungrier than ever, and yet Buffalo is running into what might be just the hottest team in the NFL right now in Jacksonville. I teased this earlier in the show. The matchup that I've already put a bet on for the Super Bowl, one of the spots is Jacksonville. Just because we have seen it time and time again. The team that is, certainly you have to be talented enough to do it. You've got to have the head coach that is of that caliber. You've also got to be playing your best football. And I just have so much faith in this team playing their best football right now. I think that them drawing Buffalo is a tough ask because of everything that Buffalo has been through and how seasoned they are as a postseason team. But you are hosting this game as well. If they had to go to Buffalo, I'd be more nervous about it. But the fact that they are hosting this game makes me feel good about Jacksonville getting a really tough win against a really good opponent and advancing in this one. I'd take New England hosting the Chargers. I just don't think the Chargers have quite enough right now. I think with Justin Herbert, I suppose all things are possible because he's been playing extremely well, but I just think that New England is playing too well as well. I think Josh McDaniels and this entire offense is clicking just far too well for them to lose that game. So I think I like New England a little bit there. And then, God, Pittsburgh and Houston. You'd think right off the bat you pick Houston, but there's a world where Pittsburgh can keep it a lot closer than people are expecting.
I don't have any of these 3 games decided yet. I think the Chargers are fully capable of going into New England. With their defense, they are capable of doing that. Yes, they are. And I think if you're going to beat the Chargers, it's got to be the pass rush, and that might be the biggest question I have left about New England.
It is true. It is true. We'll obviously dive deeper into all of those when we're previewing this. When we are previewing this on Wednesday. On the NFC side of things, Seattle has the 1 seed, so they're not going to be playing this weekend. But Green Bay travels to Chicago. Part 3 here of Packers and Bears. Love that. Niners and the Eagles, we talked about this a little bit earlier in the show, how that's a tough draw for the Niners, given how well the Niners have played this year, how commendable it is that they have gotten over the injuries that they have gotten over, how good their offense has looked as of late, and they probably drew the worst matchup possible, having to go Philadelphia to play that Eagles team. And then you got the Rams and the Panthers. Part 2 of that one, the rematch, the Panthers. With a massive upset over the Los Angeles Rams in the middle of the season when they took down the Rams in Carolina. And so once again, same field, same situation, just a lot more on the line here now. What do you think about these matchups, Dalton?
I think obviously the NFC West sticks out with those 3 teams right there, with Seattle, with the Rams, and with San Francisco. I mean, just 3 outstanding football teams that did I see a stat that the Arizona Cardinals lost more games than those 3 teams combined? Is that I think that's the stat that I saw. Either as many or more than those 3 teams combined, I believe.
What, the other teams in their division?
Yes. Which is just the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. But,
let's see.
I believe it's because if the Cardinals are 3-14.
Cardinals are 3-14, and the rest of the division has lost 13 games.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's tough.
Tough division, but 3 really good teams. And I think one of the storylines here is going to be the way that 2 of these teams approached Week 18, the Eagles and the Rams. The Eagles sitting everybody, taking the loss to the Commanders. The Bears lost to the Lions. Could have had the 2 seed had they gone out and beaten the Commanders, and with their starters, they almost surely would have, right? And then you look at the Rams that Sean McVay said all week since Monday, that loss. He said, we need to play better football. Our starters are playing. We're approaching week 18 like normal. And obviously you don't want to disrespect anybody. And Carolina's beaten them once already. But the Rams have to be feeling good about winning that game, getting the 5, and playing Carolina instead of Philly. I would still much rather play Carolina than Philly.
You know what's funny, though, is that I think all of these teams are happy with all of their matchups, right?
The wild card teams, or which ones?
Like Philly,
just everybody.
Philly would have, regardless of whatever seed they were, Philly would have wanted to draw. If you gave them a choice, I think they would have wanted to have San Francisco. If you give Chicago
over Green Bay the way they've been playing,
yes, I think so.
All right,
yes, I really do think so, because what they want to do, what Philly wants to do, is exactly the game plan that's going to be right in front of them. They just need to execute it. That's all. And Green Bay can still do a lot of different things. Are they as much of a Super Bowl threat as they were when they were fully healthy? No. But I still think that Green Bay is a really good football team. Chicago, I think they would have wanted to see Green Bay a third time, given how beat up Green Bay is, how well they know that opponent, and now with them hosting that game, I think Green Bay was their ideal opponent. And I think for the Rams, obviously getting the Panthers here was their ideal opponent. So it's funny how it worked out, but I think that all 3 of those teams that were sort of jockeying for that position actually got what was best for them.
Packers Bears round 3. If it's as fun as the first 2 were,
it's going to be great.
We're in for it. I'll say this for the Bears though, for as fun as those 2 games were, and they obviously won the second one on some miracle stuff, right? They need to get off to better starts in these games.
Totally.
Because they've played really awful football offensively the first half of both of those Packer games. Mm-hmm. If they fall behind by 2 scores, you don't want to mess around falling behind by 2 scores every time you play somebody. They need to get off to a better start. And Ben Johnson even talked about it. This offense has to play better even than it played yesterday against Detroit.
And again, I like their chances of having a game script that they prefer against the Packers than I do the Niners, like what we saw a couple of weeks ago, where if you start slow, Kyle Shanahan will immediately take advantage of you. They'll go up on the scoreboard. Now you can't really run on them the way that you want to. Again, I just think that it shapes up the way that all of those higher-seeded teams would have wanted. The second team that I put the bet on to get to the Super Bowl, it's the Rams.
It's reasonable.
So Rams-Jags is the bet that I already have placed to be the Super Bowl matchup.
And I feel much better about that, despite the fact that they may have to play 3 road games. I feel much better about that with them as the 5 than the 6. I like them as the heaviest favorite of any of these 6 games. In Wild Card Weekend, there's at least still a possibility that a San Fran or a Green Bay could make an NFC title game run, and the Rams would be hosting either of them, which would be a major advantage. But they're equipped. Look, they have everything. There's a handful of games they lost this year that just cost them that top spot, right? But either way, they're honestly as dangerous as any wild card team we've ever seen.
Who are the Rams?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love their Super Bowl chances. I think they are a complete team. Rams. If the Jags and the Rams both get to the Super Bowl, that's going to be a hell of a match.
Which now that we've said it, now Carolina's going to turn around and win the game because that's how their whole season has gone, right? It's going to be.
I guess.
Are we going to be?
I guess.
We're going to be doing Eli. We're going to be doing the Curb Your Enthusiasm music like the first time, right? I'm not picking 35-7 this time. I'll tell you that. I won't do that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good for you. That's growth. It's called growth.
It is. I don't do it often, but that's at least what we'll consider
grow
growth.
Pick blowouts. Which one do you not do?
Either. I really try not to pick blowouts, because it
really
happens.
Try
It
not
happens.
To grow.
It happens.
I really
every
try
time.
not to get better.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, we try around here to not call out blowouts because every time you call it a blowout, what happens?
Yeah, it blows up in your face is what happens.
Precisely.
Right. We obviously didn't preview all of the games that happened in Week 18 because there were a lot of them that draft position was pretty much the only thing that mattered in their result, and so. Later this week, we are going to have a full episode for you for New Year's resolutions for every single team. So we got you, even though we're not hitting you here on the grade release show, a little shortened grade release show. We are going to have that New Year's resolution for you, so we will be able to give something topical on every single team this week. Before we get out of here, though, can we give an ode to Myles Garrett? Breaking the single season sack record here with 23 sacks on the season. He got that final sack against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals this week. 93.3 overall pass rush grade this year for Myles Garrett. 84 pressures, 24.6% pass rush win percentage, and all the while, an 82.5 run defense grade. It has been a superhuman season for a player who has had a superhuman career. Myles Garrett has simply just been one of the best NFL players of all time since the moment that he came into the league. And the fact that his name gets to now be at the top of this sack record, I think is just something that it really encapsulates just how good this player has been throughout his career.
Single season sack record. Best pass rush grade in the NFL. Third best run defense grade to go with it. I mean, you have a guy who single-handedly, we've talked about this multiple times this year, a guy who teams have to prepare for just him and work their entire game plan. This was in the spotlight even last week when they beat Pittsburgh in Cleveland, right? And you just talk about one of the most dominant players that we've ever seen. I mean, there's no other way to go about it. I know Stafford's been great. I think he's going to win the MVP. I would give him the MVP. But pound for pound this year, Myles Garrett's the best player in football. I know we came into it preseason with him as the best player in football. He's really held up that end of the bargain. And look, Trev, he just turned 30 years old.
Yeah.
He just turned 30 years old last week. That's ridiculous. I mean, the career, he could retire right now, and he's a shoo-in first ballot Hall of Famer.
No question.
Without question.
Yeah.
And it feels like he's getting better every year.
Yeah.
And he just turned 30. He really does, with a season like this in his pocket and maybe one or two more close to it coming up, he might have a shot at that all-time sack record, that 200 sacks.
What's he at now?
Is it somewhere around...
Because 200 is just stupid.
Sure, but at only 30 years old, I'm going to find this real quick. Myles Garrett.
What's he at?
Myles Garrett. If we're talking, let's see. Myles Garrett has 125 and a half. He has as many sacks in 9 years.
In 9 years.
As Dwight Freeney had his whole career.
So he would need...
He needs 75 now to break it.
To break the record?
Yep.
So that would be... If he plays another...
10 a year for 7 years. Can we do that? Or 11?
That's just so many sacks.
Well, sure, but if he turns around next year and gets another 16,
I don't think you can do 10, but you can get 3-4 more years of his prime. You can get 15 in each of those years, and then you don't have to play as long. So now we're talking about it being possible. But hey, we'll stick with this record for now. A job well done to Myles Garrett, and Maul in the chat is saying, I don't know what was more impressive. Him actually breaking the single-season sack record, or his players lifting him up given how much he weighs.
Third one. Next Gen Stats had that as the fastest get-off time on any sack this year. 5 minutes left in that game, and he was going for it, man.
And I think some people watch that play and they'll be like, Burrow kind of gave up a little bit early. I think Burrow, out of the corner of his eye, realized how good of a jump Myles Garrett got on that play and went, I'm not going to get hurt again.
Also true.
I'm going down here. And so was it, could Burrow have fought a little bit more and sprinted out of the pocket? Yeah, maybe. But I think that goes into how freakish that first step was on that rep for Myles Garrett. That he just put so much fear into Burrow that Burrow was like, okay, I don't even know where he's coming from at this point because that was so fast that he got off the ball. It's been great to watch Myles Garrett perform this season and throughout his entire career. He's just, simply put, one of the best. Appreciate everybody watching this abbreviated grade release show that we had here on the PFF NFL show. Like we said, I know that we didn't get to every single team, but we're going to have something topical for every single team. We're going to do New Year's resolutions for every single team heading into 2026, not just the offseason, but then also going into next season as well. We're going to be recording that soon, so we'll have that out for you guys over the next couple of days. Once again, Holiday 30, that's how you get 30% off a PFF Plus subscription. If you don't have one right now, you go to subscribe.pff.com and make that happen. For Dalton Wasserman, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you guys so much for watching and listening to another episode of the PFF NFL show. We'll see you guys for the preview show on Wednesday.